here is a myth about healing. There was once a girl who lived in a vast, sandy place. She was tiny, but she lived alone there because her grandmother had died, and then her parents. With each loss, she felt a weight in the center of her chest grow heavier and heavier. She journeyed through the barren wilderness, and one day came upon a place where a boy was being harmed by his companions. She felt very sad, and she could not do anything to stop them, and the pressure in her chest grew greater. But she went on. Then the girl came upon a place where animals were being killed for sport. She felt very sad. She could not do anything to stop this, and the pressure in her chest grew greater still. But she went on. Then the girl came to a place where a great, majestic forest was being cut down. She felt very sad, and she could not do anything to stop this, and so the pressure in her chest grew even greater. But she went on. One dark night, a band of thieves approached, and they stole the girl's clothes and took the one thing she owned, a tiny pearl that had belonged to her mother's 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 mother. The girl could not do anything to stop them, and the pressure in her chest grew greater and greater and greater and greater. The pressure grew to be a great and overwhelming pain, and a crack formed from her heart and ran all the way down until she split right in two. From the crack tumbled out a great and massive stone. Confused and afraid and broken, the girl lay down, thinking this was her end. But then, at this moment, there came along the path a woman, not old and not young, who rushed right over and took both those halves and held them in her lap. She spoke kindly to the girl, and then reached into her pouch and took out a needle and a long thread. She began to sew the girl's two halves back together. The woman offered her a small water jug. "Keep this with you," she said. The woman, who was not old and not young, sat with the girl a little bit longer before heading along on her way. Then the girl who was a little mended, looked at this massive boulder beside her and saw that it was a piece of herself. It was quite beautiful, actually. "I can't just leave it here," she thought. So, with her new water jug under one arm, she began to push the massive stone along the path. Yet, although she was sewn back into one piece, the wound did not quite heal, and she dripped behind her a trail of blood, drip, drip, drip. And this attracted all sorts of animals following her, sniffing her out, waiting for her to fall. They licked the earth behind her, always creeping nearer. The girl grew quite tired pushing this massive stone, and all at once she tripped on a root and fell, dropping her precious water jug, which broke and spilled across the barren land. In despair, the girl wept, and her salty tears fell to the earth and mixed with the spilled water until a whole ocean lay before her. The girl turned to the massive stone and in a rage she grabbed it up and lifted it right over her head and hurled it into the sky, letting out a great, giant shout that echoed across the land. Up it flew, over this ocean, a great and heavy thing, until it collided with the heavens with a huge crash and stuck there, hanging amongst the stars. The collision of the stone shook the whole of the earth, and frightened people peeked their heads out of their houses, out to see what had made this sound. And there, hanging in the sky, was the stone, bright and round and brilliant. The girl and all the people gazed upon this majestic celestial object and were filled with a feeling of enchantment and peace. Others became wild with energy and excitement and made love right then and there under this beautiful light. The girl was overjoyed and relieved to see her burden from such a distance. She could feel her health begin to return, and her wound was no longer dripping blood. The girl sat and gazed at this stone that had been with her for so long. She watched it shrink smaller and smaller, a tiny crescent in the sky, until it was no longer visible. And then she watched it grow again, larger and larger and brighter, reflecting the stone in the sky. Growing again, reflecting on the rippling water. And then, from this time on, all the women who gazed upon the stone up in the sky, in its dark phase, felt a weight within them, and wept and bled their moon blood. And then, when the light returned, round and bright in the sky again, they rejoiced. The girl, too, bled now only when the great stone was dark, and she was able to continue on with a light heart and a light step, her burden no longer hers alone to bear.